All right, so 1993, and I arrive in Amsterdam for the very first time. In fact, it's my first European tour ever. So I don't think I'd actually been to Europe apart from it was a French exchange. I went on a French exchange with when I was 14, um, down to Antibes. Um, and we'd been out to Italy with mum when I was 7, hadn't we? So six on my for my 7th birthday. That's where I lost my shoe in the sunflower field. Don't know how I lost my shoe in the sunflower field, but I lost my shoe in the sunflower field for some reason. Trainers always came off your feet when you were younger, didn't they? But I don't know why. I always remember I was getting back in the car and I'd lost my shoe. Anyway, I was 6, so I guess that happens. But I just don't understand how that could have happened. Anyway, Amsterdam in 1993, so first European tour ever, and I'm with a band called Metal Church, a big American band. They were headlining all the festivals. It was quite a big job for me, actually. It was my first big major tour. And we rock up in fact, no, I'm going to start this story somewhere else. This was my first European tour, and back then, I was with somebody who, shall we say, liked a practical joke or two. Um, and I remember waking up on the first day of the tour bus, and to my horror, I've looked in my clothes, and I've got my name tags sewn into every single one of my clothes, into my back, my socks, everywhere. And I'm thinking, what the fuck? And what happened was that Jane had spoken to my mum and asked her if she had any of those name tags from school still. And mum gave her a whole load of my name tags with Daniel Bartley written on them. And she spent the whole night sewing them into every single one of the clothes I was taking out on tour. Much to my embarrassment when I realised what had happened. So I remember sitting in my bunk one morning and unpicking all of these these tags, and thought I'd got them all. And I think later on that day we were having a little joke about it and a little run around. And as I chase after somebody, my baseball cap flies on my head. It was a Motorhead baseball cap. I remember it well, and it fell off my head as I'm running. And I think the tour manager goes to the road. He says, "Oh, someone's dropped their hat." And as he picks it up, he goes, "Oh, it's Dan Bartley's." And it was like, "Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. This is just like, I can't believe this, you know." I actually got caught out. So that was my first introduction to European touring. That's got fuck all to do with Amsterdam as such. But we arrived in Amsterdam. Now, Amsterdam is a lovely. It's my favourite European city. It's a place that feels more homely than home when you're there. If you know, it just you kind of just when you get there, you just feel that you belong. You know, uh, I think we used to go to a little bar every morning. You could wake up and there was this little place called Gary's Muffins right down by the canal side. And you could go there and you'd have your muffin in the morning and it would cost you 1 guilder for a bottomless cup of coffee. So just as many coffees as you could possibly drink for 1 guilder. It just kept on filling it up, filling it up. You sat there by the canal side. Really, really, really gorgeous. Just beautiful. Just everything about it. I mean, it runs in harmony. It's such an amazing place. You've got a shit pile of bikes. Well, thousands and thousands and thousands of bikes. Um, Cars, trams, canals. It's just full. of just, but it all seems to run in harmony, you know, and the culture's great as well. They've got no problem with the sex culture. They've got no problem with the cannabis culture. You know, they just, everything seems very relaxed and very matter of fact. Even in fact, the venues are the best venues in the world. Um, they they're acoustically perfect. The equipment is very up to date, and everyone's just like, it's not a problem. You know, the promoters, for example, if you did a tour of England, and the promoter would have gone to Sainsbury's to get your rider, and he comes back with a chunk of bread, a chunk of cheese, a few crisps, a few tomatoes and bits and pieces, no cutlery, no spreads to go on this, just dry bits of the makings of a kind of a sandwich, you know, and real, just there you go, dumped in front of you. When you get to Holland, it's totally different. And also the English promoter, you would have to say, look, have you got any towels so I can have a shower? You've got this, you have to push them. Everything you have to push. Can I have a glass of water? Can I have this? Can I have that? And suddenly you get over to Holland and it's different. So your showers are over there, sir. All the fresh towels are over here, sir. We have all your breakfast is over here, sir. You know, everything you need is everywhere. If you need anything else, please come and see us. You know, and we have the perfect room with the perfect sound system, and everything is perfect, and it's not a problem. Everything is so easy, and it's so not a problem. So whatever you need, sir, and I think that part of it, the mother, I'd call it the mother of Europe. You know, it comes and says, "Come here, come on, we'll look after you. You know, you're fine here. You just sit down, and we'll take care of you. Do whatever you want. Why don't you go and visit a museum? You know, which actually you wouldn't think of visiting museums necessarily in England, but for some reason the Van Gogh Museum, wow, you know, it's got that extra little thing there, and you can go and see Anne Frank's house where she hid for many years unsuccessfully. Um, Before being found. It's, you know, there's um, the first thing I remember about waking up in Amsterdam or getting off the tour bus in Amsterdam was that you step out onto the street. You're a bit bleary eyed. You know, you've woken up again. You're in Europe. This is a first for me, and the first thing you notice is that you're standing there, you know, all standing outside the hotel waiting, and suddenly this bike comes past you, it knocks you flying, and someone's shouting, "Get out of you!" And you're like, "You get on the fucking road!" You know what I mean? And you're like, "What the fuck's going on?" And someone comes up to you and says, "Mate, you're actually in the cycle lane." It's all shit, you know, and you have to remember to move to one side because it's road, cycle lane, pavement, and they go for it. It's like a speedway, you know. Just bikes everywhere, and I don't even think many people actually owned the bikes. I think they were just there, and you just took one and carried on your day. In fact, so much so that outside the venue in the evening, the Melkweg, you'd park the bus up. It's very, very hard to get a tour bus into Amsterdam back in the old days, especially if the driver didn't know the route in. And you would constantly get woken up in the morning, all hours of the morning, to unhook the trailer so that he could try and turn the bus around because he's gone down a side street, come over a canal bridge, and he can't get the swing with the trailer on or have to reverse the bus up. And also then you've got trams, you're stuck on a tram line and you've got trams coming towards you. It's quite nerve-wracking when you first turn up. There didn't seem to be any room to move. But eventually you get into your space and you park up outside the venue. And then just before you're leaving, at the end of the night, it's like a large walkway kind of alleyway, I guess, like a bit Leicester Square kind of pedestrianised area. And you'd go up this road, but the bikes would literally be piled on top of each other, you know, and so much so that you couldn't actually get the bus down this road to get out. So two of us would always have to walk in front of the bus and literally throw bikes out the way so the bus could come down. And it didn't matter how you treated these bikes, they were all piled on top of each other anyway, and everyone would just grab another one and then cycle home on it. It's kind of mad when you see all this for the first time. Anyway, we wake up on the tour bus, and the Americans say to me, said, we can go and buy some weed here. And I'm like, yeah, right, really? And they're like, yeah. You just go into a shop and you can order it and it's all good. We'd only have a bit of underground, a little bit here, a little bit there in the street. Normally a bit of molasses that someone sold you, but telling you it's resin, and you end up shitting yourself all night. But this was apparently you could buy weed in a shop, right? Okay. So they say, well, we know a place across here. I'm like, okay, this is good. They know a little place. They've been here before. So we go across the road, walk down a little canal side street, and you come across this little kind of like sports bar, I think it had across the door there, and it was kind of some real nice chilled reggae music playing like this. Looked like a normal cafe, there's and and he says to me, he said, you can tell if it's a coffee shop, he said, because it will have like a little menu in the window. And I'm thinking, okay, this is like a little secret sign, a bit like if you were a swinger and you had a certain plant outside your house so other swingers knew that, that was it. There was this little menu in the window. So you'll spot them, you'll see them, but they knew where this bar was. So that's all cool. So we go along and we go into a cafe. Straightforward cafe, and you go up to the counter, and I'm looking around, and there's a few other people in there, and there's a couple of policemen walking past outside, and you stand there, and this guy comes up to you and says, yes, what can I get you? Could I have a coffee, please? Yeah, certainly. And do you have the menu? And he's like, sorry? I said, do you have the menu? And he's like, oh, yes, here you are, sir. What do you need? And I'm like, oh, there's a couple of policemen walking around outside. Shh, keep the noise down. Turns out you can buy anything you like. Any order. Oh, fantastic. So, of course, you look down your list, don't you? And you're thinking, well, I'd like to get something supremo here. It's here for the first time. Let's try something nice out. So you go for nearly the most expensive. And there was, I think, maybe 5 or 6 of us in the group, and again, this is all very new, and you sit there and you buy your little bag and you quickly tuck it in your pocket, so hopefully no one's seen you, and then all of a sudden one of them starts rolling up on the bar. And you're like, well, just here in front of everybody? Yeah, we just sit in the corner, it's all good. And they'll even supply you with a couple of papers for it, and some cardboard as well. Go for your life, mate. You're just chill, relax. So we're all sitting there, and we've all got our super duper brands, and we're all rolling a super duper joint. That's okay. This is all, and it's okay for me to light this in here, is it? Yeah, go for your life, mate. You're fine. All right. Check that the policemen have passed me outside. You don't want them coming in and busting you for this. It's my first time in Europe. I don't want to get in trouble. And so I'm there, and we're playing the pinball machine, and of course everyone's kind of smoking, and oh, that's nice. Do you want to try some of mine? And you all start passing all your different brands and styles around, and that's fine, and everyone's having a good time, and you're playing the game, and you're not really feeling. You're thinking, great, having a great time. You're not feeling the strains of it or anything. Anyway, it came to leaving. We'd bought our stuff, we'd had a smoke, and it's time to now go back to the hotel. So we leave this place, and I think it was at this point where it actually hit me, when I realised how stoned I really was. I came out of the club, and the first thing you get there's a pavement. The second thing is there's a bike lane, and then there's a road. And then at the end of the road, there's a tram line. And then after the tram line, there's the tram line going the other way. And then there's the cars going the other way. And then there's the bikes going the other way. And then you've got the people going the other way. And I don't know which way I'm supposed to be looking. And everyone's just zooming past you like this. And it's like suddenly you're in this real life game of Frogger. And you're frozen. And I remember kind of going, okay, just hold yourself together. And everyone kind of walks across the road seemingly normally, and leaving me standing there kind of a little bit Oh, which way do I go? Completely white as a sheet. Really, really, really stoned. This stuff blew my mind. And I've come out of there and I've managed to get across the first bike lane. And I've managed to get across the first part of the road. And then I've gone across the tram line and everything seems fine. But I've ended up in the crossroad, right in the middle. So I've now got a tram, a car, a bike, a car, a tram, a bike. And it's all, and I'm standing in the middle of the road and I can't move. I'm just frozen. And I remember one of the band members turning around and going, "Dan, are you coming?" And I'm like, "Oh." And then one of them had to come over and get me and take me back out and guide me across this road because it was just pure confusion. All this stuff going on around you. That evening, we did the show, and we're loading out. And as we're loading out, and everyone's coming past on their bicycles, and this girl comes past on her pink bike, and the boys call out something to her. I don't know if it was jokey or whatever, and she comes back with some instant abuse to them, fuck you, and all that kind of stuff. And there's a little bit of banter as she kind of cycles off into the distance. It's all very funny. We've finished loading the van and we think, let's go off and, Amsterdam's a place where you go out and you party in the evening, and go to this bar, go to that bar. Let's go out and enjoy ourselves. So we go out, and the first bar we come to, it was a jazz club bar. We go into this bar, it's packed, absolutely rammed in there. And, okay, what guys, I'll get you a drink, So I go up to the bar and I end up standing next to this girl who was on the pink bike, who they gave abuse to. And I looked over at her standing there and I said, "Oh, hello. So sorry about my mates earlier, And she's like, all that kind of stuff." She said, "Anyway, we get talking." And she says, "Do you want to come over? Do you want to come to another bar for a drink?" "Sure, why not? Let's go." So I get on the back of her pink bicycle and she cycles me around town, thinking this is amazing. This woman's cycling me around town and we go off to a bar. She wasn't really a drinker. We were just having a few little drinks and just enjoying ourselves, meandering around the place and stuff. And eventually, anyway, that's fine. And so we continue. I think I remember keeping in contact with her afterwards. And just before I left that day, she said to me, "Look," she said, "nice to see you." She knew the situation that I was on tour and stuff. She said, "Well, when you come back in town, be sure to look me up." We didn't have mobile phones then. I think I gave her my address or my sister's address or something like that. We wrote a couple of letters to each other back then. But anyway, so I've met this girl in Amsterdam, and she says, "Next time you're passing, come on through. I work at this strip bar just across the way there. Just come down, and when I see you, I'll come over, and when I finish my shift, and I'll come over and hang with you." Yeah, cool. Well, as it happens, probably about 6 months later, I turn up in Amsterdam again. I've spoken to her a couple of times. We'd written correspondence to each other a couple of times. "Oh yeah, what you doing, all that kind of stuff," and that's all good. Anyway, so I turn up the next time. I think it was with, if it doesn't matter who it was with. So I turn up and I remember saying to a couple of the crew, I said, "Oh, I know there's a strip bar down here that I'd really like to go to. You fancy coming along?" And they were like, "Yeah, sounds like all right. Let's have some of that. We'll go down the strip bar." And I'm thinking, okay, this is good. I wonder if she's still working there. So we've turned up in this club, and sure enough, it's all going. It's very relaxed. Sex is not a problem over in Holland. And we're there. We're having a few drinks and stuff. And as it happens, she walks out onto the stage, and she's there, and people come up and they shove the 5, 10 guilders down her panties. You know what I mean? And it's all very nice and all very good. And I think, I tell her I'm here. So I grab my pen. I grabbed a napkin off the table, and I just wrote, "Hi, Desiree, it's Dan. When you finish your shift, why don't you come over and have a drink with us?" And I folded the note up, And I've gone over to her and I've popped it in her little panties. She's given me a little wink. She remembered who it was. We'd spoken before anyway. So, and she gives me a little wink, and off she goes. And I sit back down at the table, and the bloke's like, What did I just see that right down? And I said, what? And they said, well, you just folded a napkin up and tucked it in her knickers when everyone else is putting like 10 guilders and stuff like that in there. And I don't know why. I just said, yeah, that's what you do. And they're like, really? And I went, yeah. I just, what did you put on the note? And I said, well, come and join me afterwards for a drink. I said, that's what you do. You choose one, and I'll come and join you for the evening. And oh, really? And I went, yeah. And sure enough, out comes Desiree, and she's like, woo, like that, and comes and sits on my lap and gives me a kiss. Says, hiya, how you doing? Yeah, man, yeah. And we just start where we left off, having a few drinks, having a laugh. Not really kind of, there's no name mentioned. It's just suddenly we're friends again, and we're just sitting there. And a couple of the guys are like, I like this. And I'm like, yeah, it's easy. You just find one you like, write her a little note, and off you go. So, of course, he does. He gets the napkin, writes his name on the napkin, folds it up, goes up to the one he likes, pops it in her knickers. Well, the reaction he got from that was nearly a slap round the face. Because that was the biggest insult you could ever do to any stripper, is go to shove a napkin down the front of her knickers. And never ever let on. Never ever let on. And I think that was the last time I saw Desiree anyway. So that was my first ever trip to Amsterdam.